What is up, everybody? Welcome into the show. You're watching the San Francisco 49ers Report. My name is Chase Sr., and as always, no matter where you are, how you're tuned in, thank you so much for making today's show a part of your day. It is a beautiful Thursday, October 16th. So glad all of you are hanging out here with me. And over the next hour, we're going to go through the latest Niners news, rumors, and analysis before this Week 7 matchup, Sunday Night Football, as the Niners welcome the Atlanta Falcons to Levi Stadium in Santa Clara. Here's everything that's coming up on today's show. Niners-Falcons preview. We're going to start off there. Within that, of course, we're going to talk some Niners injury news, and here in a moment, we have an update on linebacker Fred Warner. Could he be back at some point this year? We have some Niners trade rumors to get into. That's the title of this stream, because there's a lot of trade speculation around the Niners organization right now, and I think they need to make a move for a pass rusher. So we'll take a look and break down some alarming pass rushing trends for San Francisco as well. I do want to do a mailbag, but that's up to you. If you have questions for me, get those questions in. It's very simple for you to get involved and featured on the show. Within your comments here in the YouTube live chat, just use the hashtag 49ers or send in a super chat. And if you send in a super chat, it goes a long way in supporting everything that we do right here on the program. 316 people watching live. As you come in here, don't forget to hit that thumbs up icon and like the video as well. And let's get to that Fred Warner update really quickly. John Lynch was on the radio, and he was talking about Warner's surgery, his recovery, his injury, what the Niners' plans could be going into the deadline to improve the roster. To that, John Lynch said, I believe in a lot of the players on our football team. We have a lot of talented guys on this roster, and obviously the NFL is very fluid. Things can change week over week, but this is a big question here. Ankle dislocation, ankle surgery, and it was fractured. Is there a chance that Fred Warner could return at some point this season? So Matt Barrows spoke with a couple of orthopedic surgeons, and here's what they had to say in his article on The Athletic. They said that 4 months is more of the standard recovery. The two guys that I spoke to both said that when it comes to professional athletes, sometimes that timeline can be sped up because they have access to resources. For example, anti-gravity treadmills, which allows you to start that rehab a lot sooner. 3 months is not out of the question. Both of them said the likeliest scenario for his return is if the 49ers made it to the Super Bowl. What a story that would be if San Francisco could make it to the Super Bowl, which happens to be at Levi Stadium in Santa Clara. As far as how Warner is holding up, Kyle Shanahan did say that his surgery went great. He had surgery 2 days ago. Here's Fred Warner smiling. And then yesterday, his wife posted the photo right here of Fred Warner sitting on the couch, ankle elevated, reading a book. I got ankle surgery too back in the day, and they recommend get that ankle up, get it elevated just because of the blood flow, and just rest. So obviously, Fred Warner is doing that. A programming reminder, too, by the way, subscribe. Join us. We'll be live for another Niners watch party, Niners-Falcons Sunday Night Football. You don't want to miss it. It's the best place to experience a Niners game day outside of being at the actual game. We just surpassed 177,000 subscribers, so if you want elite Niners coverage every single day year-round, this is your go-to spot. Lock us in. And if you're ready to talk some Niners, we'll start the official show here momentarily. Just wanted to give you a preview as to what's coming up and give you that Fred Warner update. San Francisco. Hit that thumbs up icon, like the video. 416 people hanging out. The more likes that we get, the more people who can find the stream. Only 62 likes right now, so continue to smash that thumbs up icon and like the video right now. Going to start off with our Niners-Falcons preview. Usually I put these out on the channel on Tuesday, but there's been so much news this week that kind of took precedent over this preview. But let's get into it right now. You're watching the 49ers Report live. My name is Chase Sr. Let's start the official show. We're off and running. Welcome into the San Francisco 49ers Report. My name is Chase Sr., and as always, no matter where you are, how you're tuned in, thank you so much for making today's show a part of your day. Coming up, Niners-Falcons preview. Good Week 7 matchup inside the NFC. This game's going to have a lot of playoff implications, and I can't wait for this primetime matchup. Kickoff is slated for 8:20 p.m. Eastern, 5:20 p.m. Pacific. The Niners, 2-point favorites. That line has kind of been hovering around the Niners as 1-point favorites, now 2. The over-under for this game, I think the odds makers expecting some offense in this affair, 47 even. We will be live right here on the San Francisco 49ers Report for another watch party as we go live for every single Niners game. The real ones say it's the best place to experience a Niners game day outside of being at the actual game. We'll be live for an hour pregame show, so lock us in and subscribe, and let's get to 178,000 subscribers here on the program. My initial thoughts on this game. This, of course, is going to be the Niners' first full game without Fred Warner. John Lynch did speak on Wednesday, on Thursday, and there's been some chatter about Warner potentially coming back at some point this season. I think the Niners have a lot of optimism about Warner coming back to be full strength for 2026, to be on the field for offseason workouts because it was just an ankle fracture and an ankle dislocation. Some doctors have said maybe he can come back for the Super Bowl if the Niners make it that far, but for the rest of the regular season, for a playoff run, most likely, Fred Warner not going to be with this team. And so how do the Niners adapt, adjust, and evolve? Tatum Bethune is going to get the start there. He's a really instinctual player. But, of course, we're talking about one of the best players in the history of the National Football League. This is also going to be a harder game than we anticipated. When the schedule came out, you looked at Niners-Falcons as a completely winnable game that the Niners should be victorious in. But this Falcons team has steadily improved over the last couple of weeks, and we'll take a look at the resume coming up here in a moment. They've had some quality wins, and they're really starting to find their stride on offense, and their pass rush is greatly improved. A win for the Niners to lift them to 5-2 would be big for their chances and opportunities of making a trade to help improve this defense and increase the pass rush. Because right now, I think that's a move that they need to make. And this game, given all of the weapons across the offensive side of the pill for Atlanta, will be a huge test for this Niners defense that not only is without Fred Warner, but also without Nick Bosa. And the Falcons are coming off a huge win, one of their biggest regular season wins in recent memory, factoring in how they accomplished that victory and the opponent it was against on primetime. And frankly, the score of 24-14 felt more like a 31-14 game. And Atlanta should have scored a touchdown right before halftime if Drake London didn't go out of bounds. Either way, though, their defense was really good, causing a lot of fits for Josh Allen. Josh Allen had one of the worst regular season games he's had in recent memory. And Atlanta able to win 24-14 with 21 of those points, I believe, coming in the first half. Josh Allen, 15-26 for only 180 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. And then for Atlanta, Michael Penix, very efficient, 20-32, 250 yards through the air and a touchdown. Bijan Robinson, 19 totes for $170 and a score. And then Drake London had a massive game when the Falcons were very light at the wide receiver spot. Ray McCloud, a healthy scratch. Darnell Mooney injured. And Drake London says, you know what? I'll put the passing attack on my back for our receiver room. 10 catches, 158 yards, and a touchdown. Could have had another one right before recess. The Falcons so far, I talk about their resume here. They were up late against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a Buccaneers team that just beat the Niners, a Buccaneers team that is 5-1, and they're currently the number 1 seed in the NFC. But Baker Mayfield had a game-winning drive late to lift Tampa Bay to a victory over Atlanta. Then the Falcons go on the road, one of the more hostile environments in the league, and they beat the Vikings 22-6, and they beat them soundly. Now, J.J. McCarthy got the start in that Week 2 game. He was not good, and the Falcons' offense didn't do much, but their defense really propelled them to a win. A weird loss, and one of the oddest losses of the year, was a 30-0 loss at the hands of the Carolina Panthers on the road for Atlanta in Week 3. They come off of that. They moved their offensive coordinator, Zach Robinson, to field level from the booth, and they beat the Commanders 34-27. Important to note, it was Marcus Mariota who got the start in that game, and it was not Jaden Daniels. Then the Falcons had an early bye. They come back in Week 6, and they beat down on the Buffalo Bills 24-14. And when I scout the Falcons, Michael Penix last year showed some flashes when the Falcons surprisingly drafted him early, top 10 pick, after they had given Kirk Cousins $100 million in guaranteed money. What Penix did at Washington, very impressive. I was at the Natty between Washington and Michigan, and that year, Penix was superb, throwing with anticipation, throwing with precision to the boundary and to the sideline. He has a really strong arm where he can complete passes at all three levels. Now, in that Natty, a little bit overmatched, but that Michigan team tied the record for the most NFL draftees in a draft. That roster was loaded. And last year, you saw some moments out of the pistol where Penix was making some plays, but offensively, they were kind of a disaster. But the arm strength is there. The pocket feel is there. With the snap of a wrist, he can really spin it. Zach Robinson is a Sean McVay disciple who was in the booth calling plays. And then after they lost 30-0 to Carolina, Raheem Morris said, "We want you down on the field level." That has led to the Falcons offense playing a lot better. We've been waiting on this breakout Bijan Robinson season. It's happening before our very eyes. One of my predictions going into this year was that he was going to win Offensive Player of the Year. I think right now it's safe to say he's the best running back in football. So dynamic, running it and catching it. Drake London is a really tough cover because he moves well and he has great size. And this pass rush for Atlanta, this is a huge storyline, greatly improved because last year their defense stunk. Raheem Morris is a defensive guy, even though he's kind of coached everywhere on both sides of the ball throughout his coaching career. But the lack of pass rush really hurt them in all phases on defense in 2024. They allowed the highest completion rate, 69.9%, and the second most touchdowns a season ago with 34. The Falcons were also last in the NFL in sacks with only 31, and they were last in pressure percentage at 28.1%. But they made pass rush a draft priority early in the 2025 draft, taking 2 pass rushers in the first round, which caught a lot of people by surprise. And some of the existing players and some of their other pickups have helped this defense tremendously. And so it has been a pass rush group by committee. And you take a look at the sack numbers for Atlanta this year. Zach Harrison is leading the way with 2.5 sacks. You have Brandon Dorlus with 1.5 sacks. Caden Ellis, the linebacker, 1.5 sacks. Former Niner Leonard Floyd has given them some speed off the edge. 1.5 sacks for him. One of Chip's favorite players, Rukaroro, out of Clemson, 1.5 sacks from the defensive tackle spot. David Onyemata, 1 sack. And then you have the rookie Jalen Walker with 1. D. Alford, the corner, with 1. Sam Roberts, a defensive tackle, with 1. Billy Bowman, the safety, with the half sack. Divine Diablo with the half sack. And then the other rookie first-round pick out of Tennessee, James Pierce, with the half sack. We talked in the pre-draft a lot about Pierce and Walker for San Francisco. They've had some good moments this year. So you see that by committee, they've been able to get after the quarterback. As far as some injury news for the Niners, it took Kyle Shanahan 30 seconds during his Wednesday press conference to get through the Niners injury report, and he had to take like 6 deep breaths. And this isn't everybody, but these are the notable injuries for San Francisco. Brock Purdy, turf toe. George Kittle expected to come back. Hasn't played since week 1 because of that hamstring injury. Ricky Pearsall not really coming along all that well with that knee. Sometimes that can be hard for wide receivers. Jauan Jennings is hurt everywhere. Ribs, ankle, shoulder. Dominic Pooney did not practice on Wednesday. I'm recording this early Thursday. If he can't go, it could be Drew Moss or Nick Sickell at right guard. And the Niners offensive line has already been bad this year. Sky Moore, return man, ankle. He didn't practice on Wednesday. Jordan Watkins didn't either, calf. And then you have CJ West thumb, Kalia Davis hand, and Renardo Green neck. He came back off that injury against the Buccaneers, but he did miss that Rams game because of a neck injury. And as far as Brock Purdy goes, the expectation is that Purdy is not going to play in this game against Atlanta. They want to give that toe another week to rest. Now, I was the bad guy for saying that Purdy shouldn't play against Jacksonville, that the Niners messed up. They goofed. They made a mistake. They rushed it. But the Niners are holding him out of this game because they don't want to see happen what happened against Jacksonville, where he re-aggravates that turf toe. I was right. People got mad at me, and now the Niners have learned their lesson. I'm glad they have. So, Mac Jones, most likely going to get the start again. I think that in his 4 starts, he has fared very well. 3-1 as a backup, you'll always take it. His ability to throw from inside the pocket has looked elite this year. Now, obviously, behind a bad offensive line, his inability to create out of structure because he's not mobile sometimes hurts this Niners offense. But from a passing standpoint, the production has been terrific. He's averaging well over 300 passing yards per game in his 4 starts with the Niners. The Falcons injury report. These players did not participate on Wednesday. Edge rusher Jalen Walker, groin. Cornerback Clark Phillips, triceps illness. Cornerback Billy Bowman, hamstring. Edge rusher Leonard Floyd, illness. And offensive tackle Jake Matthews, ankle. So I do want to know who you got in this football game. I'll give you my prediction coming up here in a little while. ATL for Atlanta, SF for San Francisco. Share your thoughts with me down in the comment section right now. Coming up next, you don't want to miss this. We're really going to get into the nitty-gritty X's and O's, matchups to watch, keys to the game for the Niners to pull out a win. So stay tuned for that. It's coming up just around the corner. But let's get to our sponsor, our friends at PrizePicks, making today's San Francisco 49ers report possible. This is America's #1 fantasy sports app. Turn your takes into cash, pick, predict, play. You can get your picks in less than 60 seconds. And all you have to do is play the more or less game. You choose more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you can win some big-time money. It's also available in 45-plus states all across America. They also have some new features. PrizePicks, the only app that offers stacks, meaning you can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. You want to pick more on Mac Jones's pass yards, rush yards, and touchdowns? Now you can pick all of them in the same lineup, for instance, only on PrizePicks. You can also follow other PrizePicks players directly on the app and copy their lineups in one click. Whether it's a friend, a celebrity partner, or just somebody whose picks you like, hit the follow button and check out every lineup they create in the new feed tab on PrizePicks. 2-pick power play for some primetime football on Sunday night. Bijan Robinson more on the 80.5 rushing yards. Christian McCaffrey more on the 54.5 receiving yards. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. All right, to the back half of our preview here. Welcome into the San Francisco 49ers report. Chase Senior hanging out here with you. Really excited to dive into this here on the program. Niners, Falcons, big game in the NFC coming up on Sunday Night Football. So what we're about to break down and dissect, keys to the game, matchups to watch, what the Niners must do to win this game, and of course my prediction. Let's set the foundation and set the table by taking a look at how both of these teams fare on both sides of the football. Offensively for Atlanta, that 30-0 loss against Carolina has brought down their points per game, but the last 2 games, they've really started to get it together offensively, and you see that based upon some of these other numbers here. But they are 27th in points per game at 20. But they're number 2 in yards per game offensively in the NFL at 378.8. So they have really moved it. 5.7 yards per play, that's 10th. They're good on third downs, converting 41.7% of those third down opportunities. They have struggled to punch the ball into the end zone. Number 27 in red zone touchdown scoring percentage at 43.7%. To the defensive side of the ball, giving up just 20 points per game. That's 7th. Yards per game, number 1 in the NFL defensively there. Yards per play, 4.8. That coincides with the yards per game number. Third down efficiency, number 4. So the 4th best third down defense at getting off the field. But in the red zone, they are a little bit lacking there, 66.6%. That ranks 24th. For the Niners offensively, 24th in points per game at 20.8. A lot of instability at the quarterback spot and on offense with all these injuries. Hopefully, they could start to find their groove. The return of George Kittle should help them running the ball, put up points, and in the red zone, and obviously help out and aid this passing attack. Yards per game, the Niners have not struggled there. So that'll be a good matchup with Atlanta. 373.7. Yards per play, not a ton of explosives because of the injuries. When Kendrick Bourne is your number one, that's going to happen. You don't have a lot of field stretchers. 5.4. The Niners, the fourth best third down offense in the NFL. But in the red zone, the struggles continue. 28th there at 42.8%. This Niners defense has started to slip a little bit without Nick Bosa. Now they're without Fred Warner moving forward. 15th in points per game, 15th in yards per game, 18th in yards per play. They are the fifth best third down defense in the NFL, and the red zone defense has started to go down a little bit with all of these injuries. 20th there at 61.1%. With that, my keys to the game for the Niners to pull off a victory here and stop a hot Cardinal or a Falcons team, different bird, that's coming into Levi's Stadium on Sunday night. Number one, you got to stop Bijan Robinson. I think right now he's the best running back in football, and he's one of the best overall, all-around offensive players in the game. We've been waiting for this breakout to happen. At Texas, a star-studded prospect. As he's played for Atlanta, as a collective offensive unit, they really haven't been able to get it together. This is the year, though, where he's really started to find his stride, and that's coincided with the Falcons' offense playing a lot better and more consistently. This season, look at these numbers running the football. 83 carries for 484 yards. Ladies and gentlemen, 484 rushing yards through 5 games played. He's also picking up 5.8 yards per carry. That is an absurd number. He has 2 rushing touchdowns. But he's not just going to hurt you running the ball. And when he runs it, it's in between the tackles, it's getting out to the edge, and he's a home run threat. He can also excel in catching the ball. This is why when he was coming into the draft out of Texas, he was a top 5 overall player on my board. Very rarely do I view running backs in that manner, but Bijan's that special. 24 catches, 338 yards, and another touchdown through the air. And not only has the absence of Nick Bosa hurt the Niners' pass rush, obviously, he's one of the top pass rushers in the game. Funny enough, we're seeing his value as a run defender come to light without him on the field because the Niners' rushing defense has struggled mightily without Nick Bosa as well. Before the Bosa injury, the Niners were giving up 3.68 yards per carry. After the Bosa injury, San Francisco is surrendering 4.5 yards per carry. That is a 23% decline in rush defense efficiency. A big reason for this, too, is because of the personnel packages that the Niners and Robert Saleh were able to use when Bosa was healthy. He could play defensive end. He could play defensive tackle. Bryce Huff could play defensive end, which could slide Sam Okuanu, Yetur Gross-Matos, and Mykel Williams on the inside. But without Bosa, you can't do as much of that. So this has been a concerning regression for the Niners with the rush defense efficiency going downhill. How's it going to get any better with Fred Warner now out for the rest of the year? He dislocates and fractures his ankle, and he has done such a great job of being an elite run defender, putting his defense in a position to make plays and be successful. I will say this about Tatum Bethune. 7th round pick out of Florida State, kind of slow, but he's instinctual. He plays with good feel. He can read and diagnose plays. At Florida State, I liked him in the pre-draft because he's good against the run. And I think you'll see a little bit of that early on from him. But in the pass game, how does he hold up? Because he lacks some of that lateral quickness and really that vertical speed to cover the seam. Key to the game number 2. Can this 49ers offensive line please just give Mac Jones a chance on Sunday Night Football against Atlanta? Now, in 2024, the Falcons had one of the worst defenses in the NFL, and they had one of the worst pass rushes in the NFL. This year, though, they're a lot better, and they're one of the best teams at sacking the quarterback, and they've gotten production from everywhere. All of these following players have at least a half sack on your screen. James Pierce, Divine Diablo, Billy Bowman, Sam Roberts, D. Alford, Jalen Walker, David Onyemata, Rook Ororo, Leonard Floyd, Caden Ellis, Brandon Dorlus, Zach Harrison. And if you look at all the positions listed there, They're getting sack production because they're creative and exotic as a defense from all types of different positions. Defensive end, check. Defensive tackle, check. Linebacker, check. Corner, check. Safety, check. So they will do a couple of things to really try to confuse this Niners offense. And up front, this Niners offensive line has been putrid, both against pressure looks and even when teams just send 3 or 4 because they get bullied, especially along the interior. And this Falcons defense, this is a huge jump from last year when they allowed the highest completion rate in football at 69.9%. They gave up the second most touchdowns at 34. They were last in the NFL in sacks with 31, and they were last in pressure percentage at 28.1%. And Atlanta, not going to quite be as aggressive as Todd Bowles usually is, but we know Todd Bowles is a very aggressive defensive mind and play caller too, right? And that Bucs pass rush was unrelenting against Mac Jones. I mean, he didn't have an opportunity back there to have success. He was starting to see ghosts because he got hit so much. The Buccaneers against the Niners in Week 6 registered 22 total pressures, 11 hurries, 6 sacks for a pressure rate of 11.3%. If this happens again to the Niners, they will not beat the Atlanta Falcons on Sunday night. Key to the game number 3. Let's stick with this awful offensive line that might put me in an insane asylum by the time that the season is over. This Niners offensive line needs to run block, and they just need to find a way to execute and figure it out. Now, I think it's because of a lack of personnel. They're not strong enough physically along the interior. But can you have some more stretch runs? Can you have some pitches to the outside to give Christian McCaffrey easier running lanes where visibly he can see it? Perhaps. Can you run some end arounds, some jet sweeps? Just do something to try to get this Niners non-existent run game going, because this isn't sustainable for Kyle Shanahan's offense. The Niners are dead last in yards per carry at 3.1. We're talking about a Kyle Shanahan run-heavy scheme here, ladies and gentlemen. They're 16th in rushing attempts per game at 26.8. So clearly they're at least trying, but they're 30th in rushing yards per game at 82.2, and they only have 1 rushing touchdown all year. I believe they only have 1 rushing play of 20-plus yards all season long. It's ridiculous. And so I've been trying to figure out what's going on with this Niners run game. To me, upon looking at the tape, looking at the numbers, it's the offensive line. It's not Christian McCaffrey. Now, is Christian McCaffrey as fast and as explosive as he was in 2023? No. He's an older back, and last year he had a couple of really severe injuries. But look at these yards before contact numbers this year compared to 2023 when McCaffrey won Offensive Player of the Year. The first set of numbers from Sumer Sports. I saw this and I'm like, I got to look at a couple of different databases. So in 2023, McCaffrey's yards before contact, 1.85 yards. This year, it is less than a yard. And that makes sense, right? Because how often have we seen McCaffrey get a handoff and immediately he is just corralled and swallowed up by defenders in the backfield for TFLs? Then I look at the Pro Football Reference numbers. And same 2 years, right? 2023, 2025. Yards before contact for CMC, 3.1 in 2023. 1.9 here in 2025. It's bad, man. It's really bad. Key to the game number 4. The Niners have to limit explosive plays. And this has been a constant issue without Nick Bosa. And then once Fred Warner went out, the Buccaneers were able to average 7.5 yards per play, and for the game, 7 yards per play. Not going to win a lot of football games playing defense like that because every 2 plays is a first down for the opposition on average. And so you look at the Niners' problems with explosives. I also dug these numbers up. Before Bosa's injury, per Sumer Sports, weeks 1 through 3, the Niners gave up 5.3 explosive plays per game. These are plays of 10-plus yards. 4 through the air, 1.3 on the ground. After Bosa's injury, it's gone up to 9 explosive plays given up per ball game, 6 through the air, 3 on the ground. And the pass plays specifically up on average from 4 to 6. This Atlanta offense, they have weapons all over the place. Bijan Robinson is their number one. Tyler Algier is one of the top backup backs in the NFL. Michael Penix can spin it. You have Drake London. Kyle Pitts is a freakishly gifted and athletic tight end who can kind of play hybrid wide receiver. He's starting to get it going. This is going to be a hard cover for this Niners defense in Week 7 on Sunday night. And then lastly, is Atlanta ready for this moment? What I mean by this, they just won their biggest regular season game in years, taking down the Buffalo Bills in primetime Monday Night Football. Nobody thought that Atlanta was going to win that game and take down Josh Allen. What happened the prior week in primetime? The Jacksonville Jaguars had their biggest regular season win in years, beating the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think they had lost to Kansas City like 10 or 11 straight times. What happened the following week for Jacksonville? Letdown spot at home against Seattle. And they made a lot of mistakes, and that was the classic letdown spot for Jacksonville. Is this going to be the letdown spot for Atlanta? Sometimes human nature factors into results, and that is a talking point in this game. I want to see if Atlanta is ready for this moment. The other thing, too, the Niners have the rest advantage because the Falcons played on Monday Night Football, and they have to travel across the country. So are the Niners going to be the fresher team? We know they're the more banged up team, but with the current players who are healthy, could they be the fresher and sharper team? Predict the score, Atlanta, San Francisco, Sunday Night Football. I'm really excited for this matchup. And you know what? I want the Niners to prove me wrong here. I am just really concerned about how this defense is going to fare against this high-octane offense that comes into Santa Clara playing confident football. And I think it's going to take a couple of games for the Niners to adjust for life post-Fred Warner. And I'm not sure they can make that adjustment in 1 week. So you're without Nick Bosa, you're without Fred Warner. Now you have to find a way to stop this offense. I think the Niners struggle in that area. Plus, I think the Niners offensive line is going to be killing them. So I think the Niners fall in this game 28-25. I hope I'm wrong, but that's my prediction. Still to come here on the show, Niners trade rumors. Niner fans getting some big trade news. We're getting into that coming up here in just a moment. That and a whole lot more coming up on the program. Also, get your questions in for our mailbag. Use the hashtag 49ers or send in a super chat. That'll be segment number 3. So if you want to be a part of the show, you want to let your voices be heard, you have a question for me, you want to talk trades, you want to talk injuries, you want to talk about all things Niners, use the hashtag 49ers or send in a super chat. Chip, how we doing on that front?
Yeah, shout out to Joe Carmack, Jay Menino, and Travis M. all getting questions in. I did see Jeannie Wyatt trying to get questions in. Jeannie, you were using hashtag 49.
Yeah.
You have to do 49ers or else it won't pop up. So I saw you asking a couple questions.
Yeah.
And you just use hashtag 49. Got to do hashtag 49ers. So I ask those questions again, and everybody, get those questions in, baby. It's coming up soon. Get on the show.
Let's go. Konnichiwa from Joji. What's up, Joji? Yeah, Jeannie, so you're using hashtag 49. Just put hashtag 49ers in there because you're asking about Trey Hendrickson. Definitely want to be able to talk about him.
Yep. Actually got 2 good questions from Joe Carmack, both totally different. So shout out.
Joe always bringing the heat. All right, let's shift gears to segment number 2. Some Niners trade buzz that I want to get into here. Spaz out. I'm a Bucs fan. I need y'all to beat the Falcons. Congrats on the win last week. Jeannie Wyatt, there you go. Will the Niners trade for Trey Hendrickson? YouTube's also made a switch where everybody's @ is being represented instead of like their actual names. So that's kind of throwing me for a loop there. I guess YouTube kind of wants it to be more like social media where it's the @ and not the usernames. But I see Chua in the building as well. Good stuff. If everybody wants to change it to make it easier, you can make your @ your actual names or what you had before as the username, and then I'll be more easily able to identify everybody. All right, segment number 2, coming up. Also have a great deal that we're about to tell you about. Thanks to our friends at Fanatics. Let's dive in as the show rolls on. Hey there, I'm Chase Sr. Welcome into the show. Thank you so much for clicking on this video and supporting the channel. This is the San Francisco 49ers Report. My name is Chase Sr. Coming up on today's show, Niners trade rumors and trade buzz continues to be a big talking point for this football team going into the trade deadline, which is after Week 9, going into Week 10. Which players are the Niners tied to? I have a lot of thoughts on why I think the Niners should make a move. That's all coming up here over the next several minutes. I do want to begin here, though. Anytime we reach a new subscriber milestone, I want to say thank you to the faithful. I know I said thank you off the top, but this is truly a dream come true for me, talking about the NFL every day on a platform which has reached nearly 4 million people over the last month. The 49ers Report just surpassed 177,000 subscribers. So if you haven't subscribed, do so right now. Lock us in, and what we give you, free daily shows. So the trade buzz around San Francisco is real. And the Niners, according to a multitude of reports, are scouring the trade market, looking to upgrade their pass rush. There's also some sneaky buzz here in talking to some people out there. And I know that after the Nick Bosa and Fred Warner injuries, everybody's honed in on edge rusher and linebacker. But over the last couple of weeks, the Niners have also been monitoring the wide receiver market as well, looking at a team like the Green Bay Packers. They could also trade away potentially a Jauan Jennings or a Brandon Ayuk. Keep in mind that I think they're going to be busy going into the deadline, especially if they can pick up a couple of wins going into the deadline. And I just think that for John Lynch and this front office, trading specifically for a pass rusher is the move that the Niners need to make. If you shore up your defensive line, it makes the back end's job at the second level with the linebackers, at the third level with the secondary, a lot easier. And I know a lot of people are going to say, Chase, what about offensive linemen? Maybe you could get one of the Browns' interior offensive linemen to help out this struggling offensive line, which from a talent perspective as well, just isn't that good. But think about where Cleveland is at, right? They drafted Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. They want to see what those rookie quarterbacks can do. They don't want them getting killed back there. And so I'd be surprised if a team like that trades away an offensive lineman. And why I think an edge makes sense, if you're able to get after the quarterback and you get a defensive end who's also good against the run, tremendously. It helps out your linebacking core. And if you can get pressure on the quarterback, your secondary and your corners, your safeties, they're not going to be dead ducks back there having to just hold up for so long if you can get to the QB. And so the 49ers in recent weeks have been tied to a handful of pass rushers. From Trey Hendrickson, the star for the Cincinnati Bengals, who is out Thursday in that game against the Pittsburgh Steelers as I record this show on Thursday. Bradley Chubb for the Miami Dolphins. Jalen Phillips of the Miami Dolphins. Arden Key of the Tennessee Titans. And what do you notice about all these teams? The Bengals have lost 4 games in a row. The Dolphins only have 1 win. The Titans only have 1 win. Arden Key, of course, a former Niner. And then you look at the winless Jets, Will McDonald and Jermaine Johnson, 2 really good and talented young pass rushers playing for the Jets who could look to sell going into the deadline to try to get back a bunch of picks. Then after the Packers, who are one of the top teams in the NFC, traded for Micah Parsons, it potentially makes some pass rushers expendable for Green Bay. The Niners are said to be interested in Rashawn Gary, according to multiple reports. He's in a contract year. Or a Kingsley Onigberry, who isn't really in the pass rush rotation, but has done some nice things as a pass rusher in his career. And the lack of pass rush for San Francisco is just killing this Niners team. And it's pretty crazy, right? Because without Nick Bosa, of course, the Niners' pass rushing numbers have decreased. But they've also gotten so much worse against the rush. With Bosa, they were giving up like 3.3 yards per carry. Now they're giving up around 4.5 yards per carry. And look at these numbers here. I mean, the Niners only have sacks on 3.5% of dropbacks. That's 30th in the NFL. As a team, they only have 7 sacks. Nick Bosa had 2 of them. That's 31st in the NFL. And in week 6 against Tampa Bay, Baker Mayfield was pressured 12.6% lower than Mac Jones. So that goes to show you the Niners' offensive line stinks, but they also can't get after the quarterback with their defense. And there is a caveat with the Niners making a move. If they make a move, they want a player who can help them this year and next year while not sacrificing a bunch of draft picks for the future. They also don't want to screw themselves over financially. And that's exactly what Kyle Shanahan echoed this week. We're looking for things that make sense for our team right now and in the future. But I don't see a big difference between Sunday before that game started and today. It definitely hurts losing a guy like Fred Warner, but in terms of people who are available that can improve our team for this year and next year, I don't see that situation being that much different. Now, I disagree. Trade for Trey Hendrickson. Trey Hendrickson is on an expiring deal, but re-sign him this offseason, then he can be a part of your future. And how about a defensive line with Trey Hendrickson, Nick Bosa, and Mykel Williams, where they can all share the field at the same time because they can all play defensive end or defensive tackle. That's what I think the Niners' thinking should be. Now, I have more on this coming up here just around the corner, but we have a phenomenal deal that we want to tell you about thanks to our fine friends at Fanatics. This Niners polo, I'm a big polo guy. I wear polos all the time because it's a very versatile clothing item, right? And it serves so many different purposes. Plus, if it's a Niners polo that's looking clean like this, you got to take advantage of this deal. This Niners polo here to my right was $50. It's now on sale for $39, limited time only. But to get that discount, you have to use our link, chatsports.com/49erspolo. Then it'll take you to Fanatics. Now, another part of this trade conversation for San Francisco is this. I think the Niners' schedule results will dictate what the Niners' plans are for a trade. So you think about where the Niners are at right now, right? 4-2, atop the NFC West. They are the number 3 seed in the NFC. And you look at the games coming up. They are favored against the Atlanta Falcons on Sunday Night Football. Falcons are dangerous, but you're at home. You have the rest advantage. And this is a gotta-have-it game. You win that game, you're 5-2. They are not favored going up against the Texans. But that Texans team isn't the team that we thought it'd be coming into this year. You should be able to win that game. And I think Niner fans going to be able to take over the joint. Week 9, you go on the road against the Giants. Cross-country travel. The Giants are physical. They're feeling themselves right now because their rookies are playing well. Jackson Dart, Cam Scadaboo, Abdul Carter. But you're going to be favored in this football game too. So let's just say you can win 2 of the next 3 games to get you to 6-3. Then you're going into the deadline after week 9 going into week 10 at 6-3. You're 6-3. You're going to have a chance to win this division in a wide open NFC. And I'm of the belief, get into the dance and see what happens. Now, you might not be Super Bowl favorites, but with this coaching staff, with some of the playoff experience that you have, if you can host a playoff game in the wild card round, you get to the divisional round, you're a win away from the NFC Championship game. And I think it's important to get this young Niners team some playoff experience so that when you are ready to be bona fide Super Bowl contenders, they're not going to be shying away from the bright lights. You've got the Cardinals week 11, Rams week 10, winnable games. You welcome the Panthers to town, Monday Night Football, winnable game. On the road against the Browns, winnable game. Late bye to get healthy. Then for a stretch run, you play the Titans. You should be able to win that game. They're terrible. You're on the road against the Colts, winnable game. Probably not going to be favorites because the Colts are good this year. Shane Steichen doing a hell of a job with Daniel Jones, but you should be able to win that football game. You can win against the Bears. You've already beaten the Seahawks. That game will be at home. So it's really all there for the taking for San Francisco unless they don't make a move. So John Lynch, I think you got to make a move for a pass rusher, and I hope San Francisco does. As far as players on the roster who the Niners could trade away, not players who they could trade for, I think Jauan Jennings could be moved. I think Brandon Ayuk could be moved. Wouldn't surprise me if one of the safeties is moved because the Niners like the young safeties on the team and Malik Mustafa and Marquise Siegel, and the emergence of Siegel, the return of Mustafa has made either Jason Pinnock or Jair Brown expendable. And Bill Barnwell, I guess you watched the show because I talked about this earlier this week. Jason Pinnock, an option to get traded away. The Buffalo Bills, they're not going to win a Super Bowl or beat the Chiefs with this defense right now. They need to get better. And could they make a trade for a player like Jason Pinnock? So Bill Barnwell's trade idea, the Bills get Pinnock and a 2027 7th-round pick, and the Niners get a 2027 6th-round pick. You trade away a player who you signed to a 1-year deal, you get a 6th-round pick back, and the Niners have hit on a lot of late draft picks. Here's Barnwell's reasoning. Safety has been an issue with a lot of the competitive teams around the NFL this season. There just aren't many rosters with serious safety depth that could justify a trade. One of the few exceptions is a team that has injury issues just about everywhere besides safety right now. The 49ers started Jason Pinnock in September, but that was always going to be a temporary solution. He fell out of the lineup altogether last week, with the Niners preferring rookie Marquise Siegel, third-year man Jair Brown, and the return of second-year safety Malik Mustafa. Pinnock's not going to transform the Bills' defense, but he has been passable as a center fielder as a pro and would offer the Bills some depth. Beanie Bishop had to briefly leave the Falcons game, leading the Bills to turn to 34-year-old veteran Jordan Poyer for a handful of snaps. Poyer was once an essential part of Sean McDermott's defense, but those days have come and gone. The 49ers would add a little bit of draft capital with this deal, something they could use to address one of the 8 or 9 positions on their roster that have been riddled with injuries this year. So that's the type of trade that I think could make some sense for San Francisco. You trade away a player like Jauan Jennings on an expiring year of his contract. You get value back for a player who might otherwise walk, and you could get something back for him. Whereas if you let him walk in free agency, you don't get anything back. So that's some thinking that should be going through the Niners' heads and some thoughts that come to mind for me. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button here on the San Francisco 49ers Report. We're bringing you daily Niners coverage that's informative, insightful, entertaining, thought-provoking, where you have a voice. So if you like this show, if all that sounds great, join the movement. All right, we're going to get to our mailbag next. Get those questions in. Use the hashtag 49ers or send in a super chat. That's hashtag 49ers or send in a super chat.
Good stuff in the questions so far. We got Jumbo, Genie, Juking VR, Who Kids. So got a good amount of questions here, a variety of topics. You know, we're getting into the thick of things here in the season, so.
Awesome.
Love to get the people involved on these mailbags here. Last chance to get your question in. Use that hashtag 49ers. If you send in a super chat, we have no super chats so far. If you send in a super chat, we will answer that question at the very beginning of the show. Otherwise, it's kind of just up to me, baby. You'll leave it into my hands.
You'll skip the line and we'll take your questions first. All right. Yeah, it's looking like we got some good questions here. That gets me pumped up. Let's go. All right, let's take your questions for a mailbag.
Do it.
Porterhouse, MC Senior, what up? How are we favored? I mean, 2-point favorites. Usually a home team gets like a field goal. That shifted a little bit over time, but the Niners are favorites. They have the rest advantage. Cross-country travel for Atlanta. But it's nearly a pick'em game. Nearly a pick'em game. All right, let's round out the live show with a mailbag, and let's answer your questions. Welcome into the San Francisco 49ers Report. My name is Chase Sr. No matter where you are, how you're tuned in, I appreciate you for making today's show a part of your day. And by the time that you're watching this video, I hope all of you out there are having a fantastic weekend. Coming up here on the show, going to open up the floor for a mailbag. We're taking questions from all of the real ones as members of the Niner gang who watch this show as San Francisco heads into this Week 7 matchup against the Atlanta Falcons on Sunday Night Football. Speaking of that game, Niners-Falcons watch party will be live here on the show. We always get more than 100,000 people to join us live for our watch parties. It's the best place to experience a Niners game day outside of being at the actual game. We'll do a pregame show. We'll be live for the game, live for a postgame show as well. So experience it with us and join us. And in the process, let's get to 178,000 subscribers right here on the program. Let's begin here with this one coming in from Jeannie Wyatt. Will the Niners trade for Trey Hendrickson? Obviously, his name has been a popular name in these trade discussions for San Francisco, but really any team across the NFL looking for a pass rusher. And the Niners are going to have to compete and vie with other teams going into the deadline after Week 9, going into Week 10. A team like the Philadelphia Eagles is said to be interested in a player like Trey Hendrickson. And Howie Roseman always goes big game hunting. A team like the Indianapolis Colts has been lacking with their pass rush. And in a wide open AFC, with Daniel Jones playing well, Shane Steichen coaching his ass off, they have some other pieces in place on defense. They have some financial capital. Could they look to make a trade for a player like Trey Hendrickson? And his former defensive coordinator, Lou Anarumo, is currently the defensive coordinator with the Indianapolis Colts. And so any team looking for a pass rusher is looking at Hendrickson as the star to go after. And the Bengals' last-ditch effort in trying to save and salvage their season, trading for quarterback Joe Flacco, in a rare interdivision trade, they made that move going into Week 6. They then competed with the Green Bay Packers, but they've lost 4 games in a row after that 2-0 start. And if they continue to lose, it just doesn't make any sense for the Bengals to hold on to Hendrickson if they're not going to be able to make the playoffs. Now, the AFC North is wide open. Right now, the Pittsburgh Steelers are in firm control of that division. But I'm recording this show on Thursday Night Football, a big Steelers-Bengals game. If the Steelers win, it's like, what are you doing if you're Cincinnati? You didn't give Hendrickson a contract extension. He's going to walk most likely after this year. What if you can get back a first-round pick? Maybe a second or a third. I think a second and a third, a price that I'd be willing to pay if I'm the Niners and if they continue to win games and they think of themselves as playoff and Super Bowl contenders. But that is obviously the apple of my eye and a player who can continue to be a part of your core moving forward if you're San Francisco. Joe Carmack, always watching the show. Can the Niners get Jeffrey Simmons, Bradley Chubb, or Demario Davis? So obviously Jeffrey Simmons is a player on the one-win Titans who is one of the top interior defensive linemen in the game. But occasionally Tennessee will use him at defensive end. He kind of ripped the Titans' preparation, saying our week of practicing going into Week 6, the worst that it's been. And then what do the Titans do? They fire their coach in Brian Callahan. Now, I would love this move for San Francisco because he would greatly enhance your pass rush. We're talking about one of the most disruptive players in the National Football League from the interior of your defensive line, which would help you out in general trying to get to the quarterback. The thing that I think would turn the Niners away from a player like Jeffrey Simmons, the price tag. He's very expensive. He signed a contract extension a couple of years ago. And so while he's an all-pro player and a Pro Bowler who helps you, I think he might be too rich for the Niners' liking. But from a scheme standpoint, I like it. Bradley Chubb, I think, is more realistic because it's not going to cost as much to trade for him, and he has no more guaranteed money left on his deal. So you can hold on to him for the future, or you can get rid of him without a big financial cost. And then there's Demario Davis. If you want to bring in a veteran who's been an All-Pro and a Pro Bowler, who's still playing really well, is a good run defender, holds up well against the pass, and you don't have to give up that much as far as picks to bring him in, and he's on an expiring deal, if you don't want to be latched to him in the future, I think Demario Davis is a player who makes a lot of sense if you want to replace Fred Warner. What I think the Niners should do and will do, trade for a pass rusher that then helps out your linebacking core and your secondary, and then see what you get from some of your young backers, Tatum Bethune and Nick Martin. Nick Martin, I'm excited to watch him play. Brandon L., a $10 super chat. I will be cheering on the Niners to get the win. It's going to be tough, but I have faith. Love your channel. Watch you every time you post new updates. Go Niners. You want to talk about a real one? That's a real one right there. We're giving you Niners shows every single day year round. Appreciate that. And you know why they call this fan base the faithful? For guys like Brandon who still believe. And yeah, this matchup against Atlanta, going to be hard. Their offense is a high-octane unit with a bunch of weapons, and they can hurt you on the ground, through the air. Bijan Robinson, he's my offensive player of the year right now. On the ground, through the air, he has been dynamite this year. Drake London, a very difficult cover because he gives you, and I'm talking about Atlanta, he gives them wonderful size at the wide receiver spot, but playmaking ability. And then you have a player like Kyle Pitts, who hasn't lived up to expectations yet, but he's a matchup nightmare at the tight end spot because he can play that flex wide receiver role. And Michael Penix can really spin it. Dyson Terry Joe, another $10 super chat. Appreciate you, my man. How can the Niners stop these injuries year after year? Is it bad luck on plays, drafting injury-prone players, strength and conditioning, staff issues? It's heartbreaking to see year after year. It really is heartbreaking. I mean, there isn't a team across the NFL that has the amount of injuries at the clip that these injuries have been happening than the Niners. They're cursed. They really are cursed. And I don't know what it is. I don't think the Niners know what it is. Is it strength and conditioning? Maybe, but they changed their staff a couple of times under Kyle Shanahan. Is it practicing habits? That could have something to do with it. We know that Kyle Shanahan prefers a physical style, and that physical style is why the Niners have won a lot of games. But it's also been a reason, in my opinion, why they've had all these injuries. John Feliciano had joked that it's the facility nearby that might put something in the water to lead to all these injuries. I have no idea, but it can't continue, and it drives me crazy, and it's so unfortunate. And now if you're a player looking to come to the Niners, whether it's in free agency, through the draft, or you're getting traded there, you're probably like scared to go to San Francisco because you're like, I watch that team and players are dropping left and right like flies. I worry about my future as a player going to San Francisco, which stinks. So I think if there was an answer, the Niners would try to get to the root cause of it, but I have no idea why they have so many injuries. And some of these injuries are career altering. Nick Bosa ACL, Fred Warner's foot pointed the wrong direction. It just stinks. Some of it's soft tissue, and some of that is avoidable. I also think this is an NFL issue, right? None of these players are really doing much throughout training camp or in the preseason. So when the season comes around, I don't think their bodies are ready. Plus now you tack on another game. You're playing 17 of them. I don't know. I'm spitballing at this point, but it's dumbfounding. It's mystifying. It really is. Let's get to our sponsor for our mailbag, and then we'll start taking your questions. PrizePicks. Thank you so much to them for making today's 49ers Report possible. America's #1 fantasy sports app. Pick, predict, play. Download the app. Choose more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you can win some big-time money. All withdrawals, fast, safe, and secure. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. We have a 2-pick power play for Sunday Night Football. Bijan Robinson, more than 80.5 receiving yards. Rushing yards, But Christian McCaffrey, more on the 54.5 receiving yards. I also like the new features from PrizePicks. It's the only app that offers stacks. You can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. You want to pick more on Josh Allen's pass yards, rush yards, touchdowns, for instance. Now you can pick all of them in the same lineup, only on PrizePicks. You can also follow other PrizePicks players directly on the app, copy their lineups in one click, whether it's a friend or a celebrity partner or just somebody whose picks you like. Hit the follow button and check out every lineup they create in the new feed tab on PrizePicks. Jay Menino, with this one, trade Jauan Jennings for Kayvon Thibodeau and Demetrius Flanagan Fowles will fill a need and Flanagan Fowles knows our system. So, yeah, Demetrius Flanagan Fowles is a player who's more of a special teamer. I know he knows the Niners defense, but he's not great if he's in coverage. Let's be real. He's also not great against the run. Now, you do bring up something that I think would be awesome. Jauan Jennings for Kayvon Thibodeau. And let's talk about that. The Giants need a wide receiver. The Niners need a pass rusher. The Giants have one of the worst wide receiver rooms in football because Malik Neighbors is out for the year. The Niners desperately need to enhance their pass rush. Jauan Jennings can help out rookie quarterback Jackson Dart and give them a legitimate weapon and give Jackson Dart a legitimate weapon. He also gives the Giants something they're trying to hang their hat on, and that's them being a physical, tough football team led by Dart, led by Cam Scatterbo, who I wanted the Niners to draft in the 2025 draft, and he's been awesome so far this year for New York. So obviously the Giants would miss Thibodeau, but aren't you trying to support the most important person in your organization, your quarterback? So I do think this is a trade that can help out both teams. And then you also think about the Giants, right? Thibodeau this year has played awesome, but at pass rusher, they also have Abdul Carter. They also have Brian Burns. Now, I don't think they'd want to part ways with Thibodeau because he's also under contract next year. And I think they want to make a move for a better wide receiver, like a Jalen Waddle or Chris Olave. And with Thibodeau, Burns, and Carter, it gives them an opportunity to line those players up over guards at the pass rusher spot. And we've seen them find a lot of success with that. We've seen the Niners do something similarly with their NASCAR package. So ultimately, I like this move. It helps out both teams. It fulfills needs for both teams. But I don't think the value, JJ for Thibodeau, is quite equal because I think Thibodeau is the better player, more impactful player at a more important spot. And I think the Giants, if they make a move for a wide receiver, want to bring in a better player than Jauan Jennings. And then lastly, of course, JJ is really injured. Ankle, ribs, shoulder. Let's get to this one from Zy TV. What is your opinion on taking a year to rebuild, get healthy, and return next year healthy and prepared? I totally get why this fan base might prefer that, right? But Trent Williams and George Kittle are highly priced players who are getting older. So too is Christian McCaffrey. And this NFC and NFC West is wide open. Like, can you sit here and say, going into week 7, X team is the best team in the NFL, or these two teams will meet and are favorites to play in the Super Bowl? I think the entire NFL landscape is questionable and wide open. And so the Niners are 4-2. You beat Atlanta. You're 5-2. I think you owe it to yourselves to make a move for a pass rusher. Now, am I going to break the bank? No. Am I going to make a move that makes sense for me, draft pick wise, financially? Yes. I think that's the smartest way to go about it. I also think this is underrated, and nobody really talks about this. How about getting this young team, some of your rookies, playoff experience? I think that's extremely valuable. And I'm kind of the thought, get in the dance and see what can happen. You might not make it to the Super Bowl, but playoff experience is valuable. And I would take this coaching staff against almost any other coaching staff across the NFL in a one-and-done game. We've also seen crazy things can happen in the playoffs. We've seen this Niners team be competitive every single week this year. So I'm not willing to punt on this year. There's too much meaning, game in and game out, to just punt. Plus, you've shown you can compete. And you got some offensive reinforcements coming back. George Kittle, Ricky Pearsall, Brandon Ayuk. I'm trying to make a move to improve the team for now and in the future. Joe Carmack, what is up with Jacob Cowing? Injured his hamstring, came back, injured his hamstring again. And when that happens for a quick, twitchy player with speed, that's really going to cost you. And so hasn't been able to come back off that hamstring. Jordan Watkins hasn't been able to come back off that calf. It's unfortunate because I was excited to see players like Watkins and Cowing, but haven't been able to get healthy. Travis M., wishing Fred Warner a speedy recovery. Is this the same ankle that he played through last year? I'd have to look that up. Let me see. Let me see. I mean, it was a completely different ankle. He fractured his ankle last year, still played through it, and then dislocated his ankle this year. Let's see. Yes, it is the same ankle. It is the same ankle. And I don't think those things are tied together. Like, it was friendly fire, and he got rolled up on. I guess the concern is back-to-back injuries to that same ankle. But he also played the rest of the games last year and has missed one start in his career. So you want to talk about a durable player. He's been that. All right, who you got in this football game? ATL for Atlanta, SF for the 49ers. Thanks for getting those questions in. Is that it for the mailbag, or we can get one more? Okay. Appreciate you for watching the mailbag. Let us know who you got, and we'll see you for our watch party. Too much sauce with this $2 super chat. Does Mike McDaniel have stature in his locker room? Clearly not. I mean, if players repeatedly are complaining and have issues with the culture and they continue to show up late to meetings, what does a cultural issue point to? Who do you blame for that? The coach. You think Kyle Shanahan would have players showing up late to meetings? You think Bill Belichick, when he was with the Patriots, would allow players and would stand for players showing up late to meetings? No chance. So for me, players just aren't respecting Mike McDaniel. And I just don't think right now he has what it takes to be a head coach in the NFL. Offensive coordinator, I think he could be awesome. Head coach, clearly, he's lost respect of the locker room. And it's unfortunate. Yeah, he'll be gone.
He'll be gone.
He'll be gone. Chip and I agree on that. All right, myself and Chip, gonna sign off. Thanks to everybody who watched the live show. We will see you Sunday live. Niners Falcons watch party, Sunday Night Football.
Woo!
We can have a late night together. Going to be a fun game. In the lead up to that, a lot of great content here on the channel. That's why you subscribe. Turn on your notices. For Chip, I'm Chase. For the faithful, we're out of here. See ya.